Good morning. Hello, Joy Makers. It's Tracy here at TierraCast. And let me make sure that everything's working properly, that we're streaming where we're supposed to be streaming. And I want to welcome you all to today's jewelry making demo, which is our what we call our Western Waterfall earrings, and they are a seed bead fringe design, as you can see, and the fringe is suspended from our, what do we call this? Our desert landscape link. And this little piece, this beautiful, I shouldn't just call it a little piece, this beautiful piece was a labor of love for Kirsten, our product development manager. And she wanted to create a little kind of desert scene that could be used for this kind of work. She was really thinking of that, but she also wanted it to be, of course, useful for other types of designs. So she created it with a little opening at the bottom and openings, behind the scenery, and it's two-sided, and we think it came out great. So that's what we used to create the seed bead fringe earrings. And one of the things, because it's reversible, let's see, have to make sure I had them facing the right way. I was able to kind of reverse the pattern and reverse the link so that they were kind of symmetrical. And seed bead fringe is not a hard thing once you get the hang of it. So hello, Lynn. Hello, Joan. I love to see the familiar names. Hi, Geeta. Geeta saying, hi, Tracy. Welcome back. Hope you had a blast. And I did just come back from a vacation in Costa Rica. So yes, I did, Geeta. It was really nice. But you know what was even better? I took a nice long stretch off. It was a total of 2 weeks. Our trip was about 11 days, which meant I had 3 days at home when we got back to kind of recombobulate, and it was so relaxing. Traveling is wonderful, and going to an exotic place is wonderful, but it's a little stressful. So the 3 days I had at home after my return was extremely relaxing and restful as well. So the whole thing was great. I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to be back doing a live demo video for you guys. Hello, Sophia. Hello, Margarita. Yeah, we think these earrings are awesome. Hi, Cindy. Let's see. So in theory, because I'm using StreamYard now for my live streams, I'm also live on YouTube. So I'm hoping if someone's watching on YouTube, they pop in with comments too, because I want to see how that's going, streaming in both places. Let's see. I'm going to put a couple of links right here at the beginning. How am I going to do this? I guess I got to do them one at a time. The link to the project we're demoing is just now put into the comments. It is also in the description of the video. I'm also going to put in a link to the Wild West collection. Now, how does that happen? I only put it in once. Oh, okay. So I put the link in and it's showing up twice for me. It's saying it's showing up on the Facebook stream and it's also showing up on the YouTube stream. So that's a good sign, right? It means things are working as I intended them to. Let's see. So that's good for now. I put in another link to the project itself. And I also put in a link to our Wild West collection. Where are we supposed to sign in? Pamela, I'm a little unclear on the StreamYard thing. I think they ask you for permission so that your name will show up, but yours is showing up. So maybe you've given them permission in the past and they recognize your ISP or whatever. So you're showing up. So yeah, that's the only thing you have to do. You don't have to sign into my demo. You just have to give StreamYard permission to show your name if you want to engage in the comments and talk with people. Otherwise, you just show up as a Facebook user or something. So anyway, let's get on to our demonstration. As you know, you can download the Western Waterfall Earrings project right from the inspiration page. Has all the part lists, has diagrams, has a lovely bead chart on the back, which is also downloadable by itself. I believe I made it that way on the page. Yeah. So all of that, all the pertinent info should be there on the project sheet. So other things, I think I'll go ahead and switch my camera. Okay, so the other things we need, of course, for this project is some beading thread. I like braided bonded just because if I am using a nylon beading thread, I tend to get tangles and or split my thread and make things complicated for myself. So I tend to stick with the braided or bonded threads like Fireline or Wildfire. We're using a very lightweight for this one. I'm using the 4 pound because it's not, despite all these seed beads, it's not heavy and it doesn't need a big thick thread. I want it to be a finer thread so that it will really kind of have some nice drape. We need, of course, let's see, I will, of course, try to keep up on comments as I'm going, guys. Kimberly, yes, I did enjoy Costa Rica. It was lovely. Cindy saying she downloaded the project. Yes, I hope everyone does if they're interested in doing this kind of work. We need a needle. And I like big eye needles because, it's just easier if you have to take your needle off for some reason to adjust threads or whatnot. I find them just a little quicker to work with than a traditional beading needle. Use your favorite, whatever works for you. We're using some size 11 round or rocaille seed beads. I've got a nice terracotta, got some turquoise. I've got some kind of off-white creamy bone, something. You can choose what you like. The beads I have here on my tray are actually slightly different than the colors that I ended up using in the pair that we photographed. So these ones have a slightly more teal rather than turquoise kind of blue. And I think that I used a more matte bone seed bead. So, you can choose your palette. You don't have to choose the colors that I'm using. You can choose whatever you want. They are size 11, again, round seed beads. I usually see seed bead fringe earrings like this made with round seed beads as opposed to cylinder seed beads like Delicas. I wonder how they would come out with the Delicas. I've never tried it. So something to think about. All right, so I've got 3 colors, plus I've also got a little silver accent bead, also just it's a size 11 seed bead. My original pair has the clip-ons were made with the new Concho oval clip-on. So if you're a clip-on wearer, that is a lovely new clip-on earring finding that we launched with the Wild West collection. But you could also use the Concho post. So I think that's what I'm gonna use today if we get to the end of this, which I hope we will. What else do we need? We need, of course, that large desert landscape link. There are other things you can stitch around, and I'm going to actually put another couple of links in the comments. Hopefully they show up in both places, Facebook and YouTube. Sometimes it's just a guessing game, people. So the reason I wanted to show you some of the other, you can go and look at our what we call our stitch-in components, which if you're familiar, we have a line of, these are actually some of our round rings. I put a link to those as well because our round links, our ring links, are wonderful for stitching around and doing this kind of work. This particular little design is called our beaded concho earrings. They are also a kit that we launched with the Wild West, collection. I'm going to throw a link to these earrings too. If you were hanging out with the Great Bead Extravaganza a couple weekends ago, then I demoed the new kits that are stitched onto these rings, and that was really fun. But we also have what we call our stitch around teardrops and rings that I threw the link in. If you want to look at those, they are also great components for doing this kind of work on. I don't happen to have a pair of earrings put together that are fringe earrings that are using those particular components, but if you look at them on the website, you can see that they would have good potential. Let's see. So we have the component, the desert landscape component. We've got a jump ring so that we can connect our earring finding at the end of the process. And that's all the Tiara cast components that we're going to use. The rest of the things are just the seed beads. So we need the needle, we need the thread. And I was demoing these little beaded concho earrings, and I often keep a little magnet on my seed. If I'm doing seed beads work, I keep a little magnet to hold my needles. Otherwise I lose them. And someone commented, I didn't catch it at the time, but she commented, what is that black needle holder on your mat? And it's just the back of a refrigerator magnet. So they can be really handy for holding needles while you're working. Okay, so to start, I've got a lightweight, like I said, I'm choosing lightweight thread because I want it to have nice drape. It doesn't need a big heavy thread. And I'm gonna cut myself, I have a little measure taped to the front of my workbench here. So I'm measuring out 6 feet. If you downloaded this project before today and printed it out, your project sheet will say 4 feet, which I found as I was working, getting ready to do my demo, I'm like, that's cutting things a little close. So I changed it to 6 feet. So just do yourself a favor and go with the 6 feet instead of the 4, just so you don't run out. The first thing I'm going to do is I have my 6 feet of thread. I'm going to get my tools tidied up so that I don't get tangled as I'm working. I don't get tangled on the any tools that are nearby. So I've threaded the tail through the link, the bottom of the desert landscape link, and I'm just going to attach that with a double overhand knot, which should be super easy to do unless you're trying to do it and people are watching you. It's just a double overhand knot. And you do want to leave yourself a tiny bit of like 4 to 6 inches of thread to weave in later. So again, double overhand knot, just tying it to the link and pulling it super tight. And then getting to the other end of my thread, and I'm going to thread my needle on. And you can see why I like the big eye needles, because they're easy to thread. Alrighty, so the first part of this is a brick stitch. You're going to use brick stitch to attach a row of seed beads here that then is what the fringe suspends from. So at this point, I'm not going to worry about which direction my link is facing. And I'm also not going to worry about which direction. Well, you do want to worry about which way you're going to work your pattern, because if you want them to be symmetrical and you want the pattern to face a certain way, like for example on this pair, the long edge of that first section of blue is on the side with the cactus. So as you're working your patterns and attaching the fringe to your piece, you'll want to pay attention to where you start, so that you can get them made so that they're symmetrical. Otherwise, you might end up with the cactus on the same side, and or there's some flexibility, but you do want to pay attention to that as you start. Not horribly important for purposes of our demo right now, though. Okay, so I've got my 6-inch piece of thread. Elise, I also love this little beading mat, and I wish I knew where it came from. I know that they're available out there. I have not had one in the studio before now, but Julie, our sales rep, was just down in Tucson, and it came back with her and ended up here in the studio. And it's very sweet. And these things come in various sizes. So if somebody knows where to find those, please pop that information into the comments, because I think they're really awesome. They're a little bit weighted, so they're nice and thick and padded. So I think they're intended to be great travel beading mats. All right, so to start a brick stitch section, I'm going to pick up 2 of the white, or off-white. We'll just call them white for the purposes of our demo. I'm going to pick up 2 of those, and then slide them right down to the edge of the ring. Then I'm going to pass my needle through that opening. I want to keep those seed beads sitting up here on the top. I don't want them to follow the thread through the opening. And pull that so that they're both sitting against the ring. And then I'm going to bring the needle through the second one from the outside towards the first one. And pull that through. And when you pull that snug, that will pull the 2 seed beads next to each other, so they sit right next to each other. And it flips them over so that they're not sitting on there like this. It turns them so they're sitting flat. So that's the first step of getting that little brick stitch section. And then you proceed by just adding 1 at a time. And pull through, and then bring the needle through the opening, and then through that last bead that we just added. Oh, Potomac. Cindy says Potomac. Bead on it board. Yes, possibly. Yeah, I don't know who created these. They've been around for a few years, and I just have never gotten my hands on one, and I love them. They're beautiful. So 3, I'm going for a total of 9 of these. I want an odd number because for this design, I want there to be that center one that's longer than the rest, so it has a nice chevron shape. So that's why I want an odd number here to start with. And you may, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that was the center bead. Now we got 4 more. You may want to be paying attention to your seed beads. There can be, you know, you buy a seed beads and there can be size variation in the beads a little bit sometimes. And also there can be just kind of defective, funky beads. So pay attention to your beads. Make sure the ones you're working with are compatible. You know, I've done seed bead work where all of a sudden I notice that one of the beads is like all not quite flat and maybe even looks like it's chipped. So you want to pay attention. So this is easy. Once you get the hang of this, you're just adding one bead, bringing your thread through, and then coming and going back through the bead so that it will sit on the edge of the ring. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One more. If it's a bead on it board, there will be a label on the back. I'm afraid to turn this over right now, so we'll have to check that later. Yeah, I don't know who, it just appeared when we do a sales trip event. You know, there's a great deal of packing to take stuff down, and then often when we're coming back, there's a great deal of new stuff that comes back with us, and this is just one of those things that came back with Julie. And I got a little twist in my threads, and we don't want that. Looks like I got a little knot. No knots. That, you know, that happens just when you're first starting with a project and you're working with a long piece of thread. That's a little bit of something that can happen. I have to put my second pair of glasses to solve this problem. There we go. Some people prefer to do seed bead work with shorter pieces of thread so that they don't have the kind of tangling issues that can happen. And then, you know, you have to add thread as you're going in your project. And I'm not very good at that. So there we go. So I tend to start with longer pieces of thread. Come on. No knots. How did that happen? How did we get such a nasty knot so early in the process? Let's see. I'm going to pull my needle back through that last bead. So one of the things with braided and bonded thread that this situation brings up is if I'm working with a braided and bonded thread, I can pass my needle back through my work. Whereas if it was a silk thread or a nylon thread, that's where I would run the risk of actually putting the needle through. This is not going well. Of actually splitting the thread and putting my needle through the thread. That's not a good thing, because then you get knots that you cannot unravel. So again, just one of the reasons I prefer the this is also a good time to take the needle off so that it doesn't hinder this kind of work. And I think I got it. All right. But now my sweet little piles of beads are all messed up, but that's okay. We'll be fine. All right, so just pull it at the end of the loop. We got it. All right, back in action. Where were we? We had a bead on, and I need to just get the needle, do that bead, and I think it was our last one. That was our 9. All right, so I want to kind of adjust those so that they're even. And I could add a couple more. There's enough room where if I wanted to, I could add a tenth, but then it would be an even number and I wouldn't have that center one. And I will show you, actually, this is a great time to show it. This beautiful variation of seed bead fringe came from Danielle Wicks. And she also started with the brick stitch, with the row up here. But she then did an increase and did a second row of brick stitch. And what that did, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, what that did was gave her 12 beads, 12 openings to work from to create her bead fringe strands. So there are options. You know, the size here is limited, but if you want to do an increase, you can do a second row of brick stitch and give yourself even more openings to work the fringe into. And that made a big, you know, these ones are really lush. They're 12 strands thick. They're 12 strands wide. They're even at the bottom. So she didn't worry about that, a center strand that was longer than the rest. So she was able to work with an even number of strands. But that's just a nice trick to add a second row of brick stitch and do an increase so that you've got some more to work with. So for this one that I'm working on, we're just doing with the single row of brick stitch and going with the odd number 9. So Lois is asking if I find Fireline better for fringes, if I find it better than Wildfire. I do find generally that Wildfire is a little stiffer, but I haven't done it enough with this kind of work with both types to really develop a preference. But like I had mentioned, and also the Fireline, you can get a finer. You can get a finer thread. I think the smallest Wildfire comes in is the 0.006, and right now I'm working with the 0.005 with Fireline, so it's a little finer. All right, so I'm ready to start putting on my first row of fringe. So I've got the bead pattern here. There's also, you know, all of the instructions here to show you how to do all of this. I'm at this point, I know how to do this, so I'm just going to follow the pattern. So the first thing you need to know is that the first row on the pattern is the first row of beads that we already stitched to the ring. So for row 1, I'm going to start with one of the silver beads. All of the beads are given a letter. So the white ones are A, blues are B, reds are C, and the silver is D. So I'm picking up a D. That's that first D on the chart. And then I'm going to pick up 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of the blue beads. And this is a good place then to double check your counts when you get them all on there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I just want to double check to make sure that I picked up the correct amount. 10 and 12. And then I'll pick up another silver bead. And then next is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 of the white. and another silver. And again, this is a good place to double check that count before I slide them off the needle. 5, 10, 13, 14, and a silver. And then I got my silver, and then one blue, another silver, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 of the reds, and a final silver. And I bring those all the way up to that first row of beads. And then I'm going to get that last silver out of the way, and I'm going to pass my needle up through all of the beads except for that silver one, that last one, because that's what's going to hold the whole strand in place. And I do here want to make sure that I don't accidentally skip a bead. I want to make sure my needle goes through. Oops, you can see I wasn't paying a great deal of attention to my beads, and that one's a little misshapen. I'm not going to worry about it though. So needle goes back through all of the beads, including the very first one that's attached to the ring. And then you can just pull all that through. And I don't want it so tight that all the beads kind of crunch up next to each other. I want there to be just a tiny bit of looseness so that they can move, you know. So now, got that first strand on. My needle is coming up through that first bead, and now I'm just going to pass it down through the second bead. I keep bumping my lamp, so it's moving. All right, second row. Remember that the first A bead is already there, so I only need one more, and then a silver, and then 5, 10, 12 blues, and a silver. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And as you're going through the steps, if you're reading through the steps, it has the number for each color, but I'm counting from the pattern instead. You know, people have different ways of working. Then I got my second silver, and then I'm going with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 of the whites. And a silver. And 13. And then a silver, the silver, and then the 2 blues, another silver, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the reds. Bouncy seed beads. Hello, Nancy from Annville, Pennsylvania. Thanks for joining us. All right, so that's the second row. And again, I'm going to skip that last silver bead and pass my needle all the way back up through, taking care not to accidentally miss one. And because it's a long strand of beads, I kind of need to stop midway through and pull the thread through because I run out of needle, you know. And then I go all the way through the strand and through that first one. And every once in a while, the tail that you from the knot might kind of get in your way. You just need to move that out of the way. So that's the first two. A little tip to help take up the slack is if there's loose thread in here that isn't quite pulled through, I grab a hold of that bottom bead, and then I can, when I pull on the thread, it kind of pulls it all through. And then I'm going to kind of groom. Like I said, I don't want the thread so tight that it makes the beads too tight against each other. So I kind of smooth them and do what I call grooming them to make sure there's enough room for them to hang straight. And then to start the third one, I've come up through that first white bead, and I'm going to come down through the third. And that's where we're going to do step out magic. So and move on to where I can complete the process for you guys. I prepped this one, so it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's got 8 of the 9 strands, and I'm just going to show you how to do that final strand. And if this one is actually working the pattern from the opposite direction, but that's not a concern for the demo. But just in case you're noticing that it's not matching what I was just doing, is because I was working from the opposite side so that I could get the second in the pair, the second earring. All right, so whoops, tail out of the way. My bead is up through the last strand. My needle is up to that second to last strand. I come down through the final bead and start picking up the beads I need for that last row. So, remember I was saying I'm working from the opposite direction, so I'm actually at row 1 on this one. It might seem a little confusing, but it's just because I'm doing the second one and I came from the opposite side because I wanted to make sure the patterns like mirrored each other. How many of these? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then our silver. And then 14 whites. Oops. 14. And my thread's getting short because I'm on the last one, so kind of can change the way things work. So how many do I have? 14? 5, 10, 13, 14. Silver, just 1 blue and a silver, and then 4 reds. And then skip that last silver and thread all the way, needle all the way up through that last row. Nancy, yeah, we love this palette. We ended up using this kind of very southwestern red and turquoise palette for all of the designs in our Wild West collection. But you could do this, you could mix it up. You could use whatever beads you wanted. The exact beads for this pair that I used are on the project sheet page. I think I identified them so that people, if they really liked those colors, they could find them. Of course, just because you tell people what a bead color is doesn't mean they're going to be able to find it. but the idea is there. And that's the last strand. So now I've got my needles coming out. Did I go up through? I did. My needle's coming up through that that top bead, and now I'm just going to go back down through the next one. And I'm going to go down a few beads. And then I'm going to pass my needle around where the needle exited. I'm going to pass that around and make a little loop here so that I can make a little half hitch knot. The trick here is not to get the thread wrapped around the adjacent beads. You want the knot to tuck right in where the needle came out. Easier said than done. There we go. And I'm going to, once I have that little knot tied, then I'm going to thread down or needle down that strand a little more. And then I can pull on that to tighten it up. And then I can either do another one just for security, or I can call it good if I feel confident enough. And it's not going to go anywhere. And I'll trim that off carefully so that I don't accidentally cut the wrong thread. And then I need to do that same thing with the tail. So I took my needle off. Once I trimmed the working thread and took my needle off, now I'm going to thread that needle onto the tail. And if we remember, there's already a knot here. So all I need to do is needle down into the row. And I could, if I wanted, again, tie a second knot. And maybe I'll do that just to demonstrate that again, that little half hitch knot. My needle is coming out of the thread, of the beads. I'm going to thread the needle through it and then tie it tight, making sure that knot's going to pop down into the space where I exited so that it doesn't wrap around the adjacent bead. Hope that all makes sense. And then needle down a little bit more, pull it tight, and then I can trim that off. Okay, let's move all this stuff out of the way. And there we go. So this was, as I was kind of explaining at the beginning, a mirrored version, right? I did do it right, didn't I? As I'm putting them next to each other, I'm like, wait a minute, did I mirror them? Or did I end up doing them the same? Look, I ended up doing them so that the cactus, if I want the bead pattern to be mirrored, then I should have done this so that the cactus was on this side. So that was when I was setting up my step outs, I just didn't do them quite the way I intended to. So be paying attention to that. If you're working with the pattern that you want to mirror and you're working with something that has a design like this that can be mirrored, you want to pay attention to which direction you're working. So didn't quite get what I was going for, but that's okay. And then the last step I got a jump ring in here somewhere. I had. But I've lost track of it, so let's get another one. I'm just using a, oh, there it is. Got camouflaged in with the beads. I'm using one of our medium oval jump rings. And just going to use it to attach the earring finding up at the top. And again, the original was made with the clip-ons, but this one I'm just, Cindy, yes, I can flip it around on the ear wire, but still the pattern, depends on, the pattern's still not as I intended. I intended for it to be, here, let's get these out of the way. I intended it to be so that the final design was mirrored both in the pattern and in the component. So that my cactuses are on opposite sides, but then my patterns mirror. So even if I turn this around, but the way I did the demo pair is if I put the cactuses on opposite sides, my pattern isn't mirrored. It's the same. If I flip it over so that my then my bead pattern is mirrored, then my cactuses are on the same side. So I went in the wrong order with my bead pattern, but it's okay. You can also do that if you want to, but if you want them to mirror, you just have to be paying attention to which way you're going. Adventures in beading. And now I'm curious, I'm moving all of this, these beads off here because I do want to know. It's a bead on it board. Yeah, these are really wonderful. I really think they're lovely. And I might have to get myself some more that are other sizes. So let's see, the demo pair, the original pair. Here's the little beaded concho earrings that are just a smaller variation. I was designing these two earrings at the same time, and we wanted to do a more simple, smaller one that would work well as a kit. So that's why we did this one with the size 8 beads. But then we also wanted to really play with the fringe idea. So that's where the size 11 beads and the landscape links came in. And then, as I was saying, Danielle took it a step further, and she used the landscape link and did an increase on her brick stitch so that she could get more room for the fringe, which just kind of came out stunning, didn't it? So that is the process for the Western Waterfall earrings. Once you get the hang of this, I'm going to switch my, I don't think there's anything else I wanted to show you. I don't think. I'm going to go ahead and switch my camera back. Yay. I think you could use this pattern with one of our, I'm going to grab some of the stitch-in components. Hold on just a second. Not stitch in, stitch around. So I put a link to these earlier in the thread. And these are components that we came out with. I'm going to have to switch my camera back again. So these are components that we came out with a couple of years ago. It's a series of rings and teardrops that are coming, both of the ring and the teardrop come in a couple different sizes. And they would just be stellar with this kind of design. And what's wonderful about these is that, they're more neutral. So this, obviously, with the desert landscape is very Western themed. With these, you could go with any palette and you could still use this pattern and just mix up your palette so it was less Southwestern. And I think that those would have a lot of potential for this seed bead fringe idea as well. So that's all I have. Hope you enjoyed that. And thank you, Cindy. I'm a little proud of myself. I'm not a seed bead expert. I tend to dabble in a lot of different techniques to show our parts in with as many kind of ideas as possible, which kind of means that I don't end up being an expert in anything. I just kind of dabble in everything. So I actually am a little bit proud of myself for these earrings, and writing the instructions and doing the steps for these is a challenge in itself. So I'm a little proud of myself for pulling that off too. So hope you guys like it. And I do have another meeting at 11, so I'm going to hop out of here. And thank you guys so much for watching. And like and share. And we'll see you next week with another project. And I hope you guys stay well this week and make lots of great stuff. And I will see you. Bye.